jargons and big names have been around for a period of time, over the last 5-6 years or so. But it's been a real change in the pandemic era, or in the last 13 months or so. And it's been a learning process for us, as it has been for our enterprise clients in the region and then in the industry as a whole. Taking one of the themes around that for IR 4.0, in recent times there's really been a disruption within the supply chains, physical access, needs for different protocols. And so our clients in itself have had to learn what that really means in terms of their business. So we've seen a real acceleration in the adoption of IR 4.0. As an example, clients of ours who are car manufacturers in the region have had difficulty in accessing both into their manufacturing plant as well as supply chains from all over the world. So they've had to take this digital journey or introduce technology into their operations very, very quickly. So these concepts and tech has been around in the background for a long period of time, but the last 18 months or so has created that need for them to implement that very, very quickly. On the other front, we've also seen smaller businesses starting to adopt it. And we've seen examples of that in our day-to-day lives, which are part of our small and medium enterprise clients. Folks who used to have access with either restaurants or service industries were completely cut off from their client base and again from their supply chain in. So they've had to quickly iterate and adopt to tools for survival of their business. And that's, again, a really interesting question. And then patterns are starting to emerge where there is quicker adoption and less so. So the ones with less so has traditionally been older businesses, people who are not used to digital tools, working with computers, working with devices. And there we've had to take a different sort of an approach to that client set. That requires steps of almost recruitment, meaning showing them step by step what does it mean by using these tools. But what's been interesting is that the apps today which we have, the tool sets which we have, is intuitive for that. So even crowds who've not used that before have taken to that quite quickly. And our own operating companies in region have started to package tools which are accepted by that market space to do that. And the other end, there are all of the digital natives. People who've just started, they're young, they're familiar with all of the social media tools, are very familiar with apps around it. For them, it's just been a area of where do they use those tools for their business sets. And so that journey has been a lot easier for the digital natives to pick those tools out. So we spent, and that's very interesting to do, because what we've taken is a very practical approach from the market, as opposed to creating the product in-house look. We spend a lot of time with our clients and engaging them to where the actual technology is used and what is the value which brings to them. What we've learned very quickly is to iterate those products and solutions for the market set. So we do quite a lot of group engagements with our clients, focus groups to understand how do they utilize those technologies. And you would appreciate that's been changing very quickly in current circumstances where, movement restrictions, where we've had different sort of protocol sets around that. Specific examples of that would go all the way from, introducing smart port and railway solutions for our clients out in Sri Lanka, which has been very interesting to do, to provide connectivity for train services end-to-end, that their clients are connected throughout the journey. All of the food which they want to order, provide any of the customer service from the train service are all done through apps which are provided during that journey. So the solutions which we provide differ in various markets. In the cases of markets like Indonesia, that's predominantly been driven by education. again, large population base with a large university population, which don't have physical access into their classrooms. We've been able to package solutions or education apps to be able to provide them for those university students. For us, yes, we start off with the connectivity. I mean, that's where our strength lies. But Axiata also brings a very strong and present brand in the region. So all of our enterprise clients resonate with our brand. We've been there in region, we've served those clients for a long period of time. So clients trust us. So to be able to bring new technology and new solutions on board, there is that name which comes with us. And then two, within specific countries in itself, we are present throughout the entire region. So if it was a MNC which had presence out in Penang versus in Johor versus in Kuala Lumpur, we are able to serve them because of our presence, as an example here in Malaysia. And two, I think our clients also trust us for the fact that we've always been very innovative, right in the forefront of introducing new tech on board into our solution sets. And we're relatively new into enterprise. We're growing in there. And so we've also had a presence in taking out our own brand proposition on enterprise, both together as the operating company like Celcom or Robi, but together with the global giants like Microsoft and Google, who we've tied on board to do. Yes and no. I think that they have global presence, scale, they innovate very quickly. But telcos and CSPs also, as I said, has a brand presence in the region. Our clients trust our brand and that proposition which they go across. We have physical infrastructure to be able to provide those services. And we also take a sort of a inorganic or capability development route for them. It's quite clear with the large hyperscalers of the world, they focus on the technology platforms. But clients themselves need migration services, managed services, someone to turn up physically to fix their problems. And this is where we bring a brand strength and capability on those areas. Started off with our strength on connectivity. So things around IoT services, smart services was a natural area for us to get into. And clients started to use those solutions for us in all regions. As an example of that, we provide a solution for food safety and in particular for poultry in Indonesia. There's a large concern about mortality rates, health around those chicks from the day that they're born. So there were early clients who adopted these smart technologies. And of course, that was pre-pandemic. And as soon as the pandemic came onto being, that health issues or safety issues around that food security came to the fore. And so we've started to replicate that in different markets in those areas of the world. Of course, once we start to get that connectivity and compute out into all of the non-traditional devices, meaning sensors on farms, that introduces the area of around security. So now, we're collecting so much of data around how do you secure that. So what's come to the forefront since we've started to introduce things around IoT is how do you secure these applications and services end to end. And that's where we've then tied in with cloud service providers to be able to store, compute that type of data and provide the right sort of information back to our clients to act upon that information which comes back. So the second area of growth has been around compute and cloud. For that. The third has of course been that security which goes across again end to end for all of these non-traditional devices. There we've tied in with the technology providers like Telefonica. We've acquired some companies who are specialized in the areas of security and expanding away again from non-traditional banking type of security into various verticals and industries which we have. Going forward, I think we will see a lot more of AI and machine language coming into play into these areas because with the data volume which we're going to get off that, It's a complementary bit to then have things like AI to create patterns, to bring out meaning from the type of data sets which we have, and to be able to produce that back into our client base. Yeah, absolutely right. And then I think that's even more pronounced in our region. So in more developed markets or also in non-English speaking countries, that becomes a little bit more difficult to understand, well, what does that mean for your business? And this is where I think for enterprises and small, medium businesses, this is one of the reasons why they get attracted or start to work with Axiata, because we have a pool of experts who are able to distill down what that means in terms of technical jargons to what does it mean on a day-to-day impact for your own business, whether you're a small or medium business sized restaurant owner or a large MNC which has regional presence. What does that really mean? So examples of that would be for the services industry. We start to have conversations with people who own restaurants. What is it that you need both from your business perspective as well as serving your clients? This starts the conversation completely away from non-technical terms. We don't introduce any of that early on. And that's where it starts to have conversations about, my clients would like Wi-Fi access when they turn up in the restaurant. We want them to be able to order through devices today to be able to follow the SOPs. We'd like to be able to, have digital payment systems around that because we want to be able to connect that. And that starts to, get people excited about, and without any of those technical terms, we now know what their business need is. That helps us tailor that conversation to say that having this mobile package with the security around it, with the terminal around it, with having an e-menu on your app helps you do this. So that becomes quite intuitive because now the owner realizes what are those values to his business which it brings across. So that's one end of the spectrum. On the other are like large mining companies. They've got new criteria to meet for their own occupational safety and health. They're sort of green indicators which they need to meet for their own business per se. But these are mining folk, people who work with large machines and probably don't adapt so quickly onto all of the tech. There we have a different type of a conversation to say, who is it that we need to be able to protect? What are the safety or health concerns which you have, and what is it that we want to be able to reduce? So that means talking to multiple sort of stakeholders within those enterprises, and for us to then come back and say, what type of technology would fit into that type of an environment. So we go through that entire cycle of what is a day-to-day operations for a mining company which happens to use a large port to be able to transport their mining ore around. As an example of that, we were able to provide a solution to a large conglomerate called Vale. Vale is almost the largest sort of mining company from Brazil who have operations here in Malaysia. And here we were able to introduce things around telematics, which again is a jargon or a big word, but that means that it was able to then monitor the health or the safety of day-to-day operations of their truck drivers. This became a big boon to Vale in itself because they were able to measure those metrics around safety and health very, very quickly. Which drivers were up, were they drowsy, were they active, how many trucks were moving within their own yards very quickly. Again, the solutions we were able to tailor those solutions with this set of expertise which we have away from technical jargon first to mean to what does it impact from their day-to-day business. Yes, and that's again a large challenge for many organizations which we work with in the region. And that's not always a trivial or a simple process to do, or neither is there a simple answer to that. Examples which we've taken again is for large enterprises to understand where do they want to focus on their own business, because it used to be very vertically integrated before. They had a much more mature workforce which drove that. And if they cannot do that transformation program immediately across that value chain, to focus on to areas where digitization or tech makes that first impact. And in those cases, then to try and complement them with people who understand where that technology impact is. In some cases, with a more digital native type of a workforce in those areas of work. So for the examples of the smart train infrastructure which we provided through Dialogue in Sri Lanka, a lot of the tech for the connectivity piece along those train lines, being able to wire up the actual train lines themselves, the train personnel who are working on that didn't really require huge digital sort of knowledge base to run that. Whereas the people who they hired to then build up the apps to be able to do e-menus around them, of course they needed to be a lot more in tune with tech and then to be able to build up those apps. But they made a conscious decision about where that intervention should be within their workforce for that adoption. Quite a broad area, and if I can maybe just distill that down into three to where we do that. What's been very interesting is because I think we were almost technology or digital laggards in region in comparison to the more mature markets, that has also meant in this wave of technology that we've been able to adopt that very quickly. So there's very little legacy to get across to do that. And that's shown by large sort of tech companies which have been born in region, from the likes of the Alibabas to the Grabs of the world. And they, I think, will start to dominate with innovation on the digital and technology front. So for region to be able to support them as clients or enterprise as clients is really going to take us to the top end of that pyramid in being able to provide that, because they are ahead of that curve. And what I foresee is companies like that would start to then expand globally much, much more aggressively. The second is almost a positioning around being the factory of the world. So we see in region of where we are at today, a huge set of our clients are very manufacturing based. And there I think the contribution and where those industries will be is that they will become a lot leaner. The supply chains would start to become a lot more efficient. And they would start to then adopt areas around digital transformation in manufacturing and services, which they do. Last but not least, there's also the part of experiential type of services, where it's a bit more luxurious. It's about a high touch physical presence which we do, whether that's through tourism, luxury goods which we do. Again, I think that there would be digital transformation within their operations per se, but that would be limited to things like transactions and customer experience digitally. But most of the businesses would still be very traditional in terms of the physical access to that. And there too, I think Asia and the region which we work in has got a large upside in those type of client base which we have.